What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy Football Overanalysis. Today we're talking about the Washington Commanders, their fantasy relevant players, and whether or not we are targeting or fading them in our drafts this summer. At quarterback, Jayden Daniels was limited last year to just 7 games due to various injuries. Daniels was still fantastic when he did play. He still offers a great floor with his rushing. However, Daniels last season did serve as the textbook example of why I'm generally against drafting a quarterback early. Because last season, Jayden Daniels was not cheap in drafts. He was being drafted as a top 5 quarterback, as opposed to his rookie season when you could get him in the double-digit rounds. And when you spend a higher-end pick on a top 5 quarterback, you're drafting that guy pretty much at their ceiling. So if they don't perform as a top 5 quarterback, then that pick becomes a bad pick. And the advantage that you thought you were paying for your team to have on paper no longer exists. And that's exactly what happened with Daniels last year. He goes through injuries throughout the season, and really he wasn't available to your fantasy team after week 9. And look at the values that you passed on a year ago, drafting not only Jayden Daniels, but think about guys like Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, who also were drafted as top 5 quarterbacks that underachieved last year. If you waited, you could have gotten Drake May in the double-digit rounds, Jared Goff. You could have invested in Caleb Williams or Trevor Lawrence in their new offenses in the double-digit rounds. There were just so many better values if you waited on quarterback, which is why it's a strategy that I tend to follow quite a bit. And it's also why I'm going to be out on Jayden Daniels once again this season. Daniels, once again, carries a top 5 quarterback price tag to his name. And it's not to say by any means that I don't like Jayden Daniels or that I think he's going to be bad this year, because I actually think if he's healthy, he's going to bounce back and have a great season. The Commanders did go out and hire a new offensive coordinator, David Blau, who was going to install a much more quarterback-friendly offense. And the new offense is a great fit for Daniels, and if he's healthy, he's going to have a fantastic season. We know that he's electric as both a runner and a passer. However, given the price tag for Daniels, and given that I have questions about his durability, I just can't use that level of a pick for him on my fantasy teams. At running back, last season the Commanders took a really confusing approach to their backfield. They made it very clear in training camp last season that they didn't want veteran running back Brian Robinson on their team anymore. Also early in camp, 7th round rookie Jacory Croskey-Merritt was getting a decent amount of hype. And that hype on Croskey-Merritt got out of control once the Commanders decided to trade Brian Robinson away to the 49ers. At that point, everyone thought that Croskey-Merritt was just going to the moon. He was going to be the guy. He was going to have the job from week 1. And that just wasn't the case at all. Instead, what ends up happening is the Commanders go with this weird backfield by committee with Chris Rodriguez and Austin Eckler getting snaps above Croskey-Merritt. And things played out pretty predictably from there. The Commanders just overworked Austin Eckler, and it led to him blowing out his Achilles in the second week of the season. And Croskey-Merritt was slowly worked more and more into the offense as the season went on. However, I wouldn't say that he completely took advantage of the opportunities that he had. There were a lot of mistakes, a lot of fumbles, a lot of issues in pass protection. And really, these are all issues that we should have seen coming. It's difficult for rookie running backs to pick up on all the nuances that they need to understand to succeed in NFL offenses. And keep in mind, even the best NFL prospects, first-round picks like Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, were not unleashed right away when they came into the NFL. It took time for them to get comfortable with everything that their teams needed them to do before they felt comfortable giving them larger roles. So if these two all-world first-round picks weren't unleashed fully in their rookie season, we sure should not have expected a 7th-round pick that had barely played football in Jacory Croskey-Merritt to receive a full workload in his rookie season. And also, I want to be clear, it's not like Bill was a complete disaster either. He still ran for over 800 yards and 8 touchdowns and finished as an RB3. So now fast forward to this season, and the Commanders don't really add much at the running back position in the offseason. They signed veteran Rachaad White, they use another 6th-round pick at the position in Kaytron Allen, but other than that, they don't make any significant moves here. Meanwhile, Croskey-Merritt's ADP has gone down significantly from what it was a year ago. Currently, he's being drafted as the RB40. So, at that price, I'm buying back in on Croskey-Merritt this season. He's now got a full year under his belt, he doesn't have a ton of competition, and on top of everything else, he's gotten very positive reports coming out of the offseason. So, I think it's very possible that we were all just a year early on Jacory Croskey-Merritt. I'm perfectly willing to buy into him at RB40 as my RB4, RB5 on my rosters. And if he doesn't work out this year, he's coming in a range where it's going to hurt my fantasy team a lot less than it did a year ago when he was costing like a 6th or 7th round pick. And I'm not overly concerned about his competition on the roster. Yes, I think Rachaad White is going to be a thorn in his side, particularly when it comes to taking a lot of the third down and the 2-minute drill work. But White otherwise has been a pretty inefficient player in his career. He's not going to take the goal line work from Croskey-Merritt. And with Kaytron Allen, again, he's a rookie running back, so it's going to take him time to get fully up to speed to the point where the team even trusts him to be out there, let alone for him to come in and threaten Croskey-Merritt's job. So I'm completely willing to take a shot on Croskey-Merritt as a year 2 breakout. And keep in mind, in these drafts, he's going to be so undervalued because so many people were burned by him last year. So take advantage, buy the dip, stash him as your RB4, and if it doesn't work out, it's not going to kill your fantasy team. At wide receiver, Terry McLaurin was a major bust last season, finishing as the wide receiver 56. Injuries limited McLaurin to just 10 games a year ago, and in those 10 games, he really didn't do a whole lot. He only caught 38 passes for 582 yards and just 3 touchdowns. This year, there's not much of a dip on McLaurin's ADP. He's coming in as the wide receiver 22, and at that price range, I'm going to be out on Terry McLaurin. Currently, he's going around guys like Emeka Egbuka, Luther Burden, Ladd McConkey, Mike Evans, Jamison Williams. All those guys, I'm taking over Terry McLaurin. And for me, it comes down to a couple things. For one, McLaurin is actually a lot older than I think people realize he is. He's over 30 right now currently, and he's coming off of a year where he just dealt with a lot of injuries. Now, it could have just been an outlier year where he struggled staying healthy. That does happen a lot. But it also could be a guy who's on the wrong side of 30 that's starting to break down physically. And really for a lot of these wide receivers, that age 29, age 30 range is when they start to break down physically. So you can take an older receiver like Terry McLaurin at age 30, coming off of an injury-prone season at the end of round 3, early round 4, or you can go for a young ascending talent like a Tet McMillan, like a Emeka Egbuka, like Luther Burden. For me, I'm almost always going to fade the older guys and bet on the young ascending ones. So again, Terry McLaurin is going to be a fade for me this season. And for the rest of the wide receivers, there's really not a lot here right now. Rookie Antonio Williams is currently set to be the wide receiver 2, but with the Commanders, there's been a lot of rumors that they could add Brandon Ayuk, Stefon Diggs, and while Brandon Ayuk seems to have lost his mind and that scenario is now no longer on the table, the Diggs option remains very much in play. And if Diggs were to sign here, I would have some interest if the ADP doesn't go too high. Diggs showed last season with the Patriots that he still does have some gas left in the tank, and I think he would be a very good fit in this offense with Jayden Daniels. But while the reports that have come out have said that Diggs himself is interested in Washington, there haven't been any reports that Washington themselves is all that interested in Diggs. So we'll see what happens there. I do think Washington makes some kind of move at the position before the season begins. It's just hard for me to imagine them going into the season with just Antonio Williams behind Terry McLaurin on the depth chart. And for Antonio Williams, it's hard for me to get excited about him. I just don't think that they're actually going to go into the season with him as their wide receiver 2. I think it's only a matter of time before they make some kind of move at the wide receiver position, and once they do, any kind of value that Williams had is just going to be gone in an instant. And then at tight end, I absolutely love Chig Okonkwo. He's one of my favorite tight end sleepers this year. Okonkwo, who was kind of buried by a bad situation out in Tennessee, never got an opportunity to fully be unleashed out there. He now steps into a situation here in Washington that was very fantasy-friendly for tight ends over the last couple years. Zach Ertz, in the twilight of his career as the starting tight end here, finished as the tight end 7 2 years ago. And again, behind McLaurin, there's just such a void as this team's number 2 pass catcher, so there's plenty of opportunity for Okonkwo to emerge as a threat in this offense. Okonkwo has also gotten really good reviews out of training camp. Coaches have praised him both as a blocker and a receiver, and if he's thriving as a blocker as well as a receiver, then that also means that he's got a path to playing a massive amount of the snaps. And the best part about Okonkwo is his cost. He comes in right now as the tight end 18. So at that cost, it's very easy to get him as part of a late round tight end build. I love late round tight end where you could go with both him and Isaiah Likely, or one of the veteran guys like Mark Andrews or Dallas Goedert. But Okonkwo is a guy that I feel great about this season, and I'm excited to draft him in the back end of all my drafts. And that's going to do it for this one, guys. So with the Commanders, they have a couple really interesting pieces here. I really love the late round options in Jacory Croskey-Merritt and Chig Okonkwo. The earlier round guys, Jayden Daniels and Terry McLaurin, are both going to be fades for me. I just like the options going around them much better. But I thank you guys so much for watching, and we will talk to you next time when we go over the Philadelphia Eagles.